Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm Catherine Duggan. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at FIP, and it is my great pleasure to host this podcast video chat with two brilliant women, Linda Graaf and Anne Lewerenz. I'm also here with my colleague Isu. And before we get going, we're each going to say a few words about ourselves to introduce ourselves. So I've mentioned I'm Chief Executive at FIP. Have worked in many sectors, having finished my PhD in 1998. I've worked in the university sector, I've worked in community pharmacy, hospital pharmacy, primary care pharmacy, and I've worked in policies, and I've worked at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society prior to taking on the chief executive role. It's my absolute honour to be in this post, and one of the things I'm particularly passionate about is supporting women in science and education wherever they practice. And in our profession, everybody needs science to practice and everybody needs education to keep developing. So I'm going to ask Linda to just tell us a little bit about herself as well. And hopefully we'll get to know Linda a little bit more and Anne a bit more in the podcast today. Linda, a little bit about you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Linda de Graaf. I'm from the Netherlands. I am a pharmacist for almost 25 years next year. And I'm also married for 25 years next year. These are two things I'm quite proud of. So I graduated in Utrecht in 1999. And after that, I had some different jobs. I was really interested in the working of medicine. So I worked in pharmacovigilance for the first 5 years. And then I switched to working at the Dutch Pharmaceutical Journal because I particularly fond of writing too. But in the end, I missed the patients. I missed contact with people. So in 2010, I decided to do the postdoc education to be a community pharmacist. And I've been working in several pharmacies since then. So that's almost 13 years now. But I'm still combining this with writing articles and writing e-learnings for pharmacists. So quite busy days, but I really love it. In the beginning, I thought I studied pharmacy because I was really interested in medicines and how they work. But in the end, the patient context is now one of the things I love most in my job.
That's just amazing that your passion comes through, really, Linda. And I think we will touch on in here. Hopefully we'll get a chance to explore the fact that pharmacy just opens up so many doors for you as a degree and a qualification. It's quite amazing, actually, when you look and see where you can go. So we'll start to explore that as well, Linda. And it's your silver anniversary for work and marriage next year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anne, tell us a few words about yourself, Anne.
My name is Anne Lewerenz. I'm 50 years old and I come from Leipzig in Germany. And I have been a pharmacist also for 25 years. So, Linda, that's something we have in common. I think my background has a big impact on my professional development. I grew up in the former GDR, spent 1 year in the USA at the age of 18, and then I decided to study pharmacy after graduating from German high school. At the time, unemployment in East Germany was extremely high, and many family members and friends of my parents were almost all unemployed at times. Therefore, I choose a profession with great chances of finding a job after university. With my mother, who had worked full-time and held a leadership position all her life, it was clear to me that I wanted to be successful professionally myself. And during my university studies, I developed a During my university studies, I developed a passion for pharmacology. So I wrote my PhD thesis in this field. And since graduating, I have worked in various professional fields of pharmacy as a research assistant at the university, as a pharmacist in a community pharmacy, as a clinical research assistant for clinical trials at a contract research organization, and as an employee in quality assurance and quality control at the pharmaceutical industry. And now for more than 10 years, I have been a GMP and GCP inspector at a lender authority in Saxony.
And that's really impressive. I know we'll weave our professional journeys through the rest of the conversation as well. We'll come backwards and forwards, but it's really exciting to be talking to you both today. Before we do get on to the next part of our podcast today, Isu, do you want to just say a few words about yourself, where you're from and what's inspired you to get into pharmacy?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. So my name is Aysu Selçuk. I am a policy practice and compliance manager at FIP, and I'm also responsible for FIP's Women in Science and Education program. And I am also a woman in science and education. I have another position in Ankara University in the Department of Clinical Pharmacy. And it is my pleasure to host two of our colleagues, great pharmacists, and I am looking forward to listening their pharmacy journey and their views and insights. Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, very, very exciting to start this. And actually, I must say, Anna Linda, that this episode is the very first. It's the very first podcast video chat for our FIP Women in Science and Education FIPWiSE initiative. The initiative itself aims to champion and enable women in pharmaceutical sciences and pharmacy education to achieve their fullest potential, but also to support the fullest potential of others and to attract female students and young pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists into those fields. I also think it's important that we don't limit people's journeys only into what might traditionally be called education, but to understand, Anne and Linda, that wherever you work, you can keep that passion for science and education. One of the very important publications that we have done at FIP is the FIP toolkit. I haven't mentioned to you that FIP is part of an alliance between the medics, the dentists, the nurses, and the physiotherapists. And we collectively created a positive practice environment guidance. It was called the PPE guidance. And then, of course, when the pandemic came along, PPE took another meaning. But what we did in FIP, that joint guidance, was to kind of translate it and adapt it into positive practice environments for women in science and education. And the toolkit identified 5 big factors, including equal incentives for equal work, work-life balance, creating supportive and safe working environments, opportunities for professional development, recognition and empowerment, and finally, women in leadership. This week, we celebrated the 5th anniversary of Astana with a Primary Healthcare Day, and we launched 2 further publications. Our community pharmacy section have launched one that is about positive practice environment in community pharmacy. So these issues are not only for women, are not only for community, are not only for science and education. They affect all of us. It's just we want to look at the different populations in different ways. And we also published 10 calls to action, which really push the workforce further. So when we talk together today, we want to see what initiatives FIP can take forward, what we already have in the store cupboards that can support the issues that you both identify, and then really to think about further conversations we can have with women in science and education and what's needed. We do know, Anne and Linda, one of the biggest things from our FIPWiSE work is a call for mentorship. So when we tell our stories and we talk about our journeys and we reflect on some of the factors that we've identified from our own personal perspectives, this really helps the future and emerging leaders in science and education, especially FIPWiSE. So we're going to take some time today to discuss these factors from the toolkit, and we'll weave in and showcase your stories. And I'm going to try and get out of you both some really good examples from real life about equality, equity, from your experiences of women in science and education. So let's start with Linda. And we've got a question here really about the key. You mentioned your professional journey moving between different sectors and being absolutely passionate about patient care today, which is what has influenced you. Can you tell us your motivations and your passions at the very beginning about why you got involved in pharmacy?
You mean why I studied pharmacy in the first place?
Absolutely. Why pharmacy would be the question.
Why pharmacy? That was really because what I said earlier, I was really interested in how a medicine works. Even when I was a little girl, I wondered, well, okay, I've got a headache and then I get a painkiller from my mother. But how does it know where my ache is, that it's in my head and not in my feet? So even I think I was 5 or 6 years old, I was wondering about that. And that kept with me all the time, actually. So for me, when I graduated from high school, I had two options, I decided. So one was studying Dutch and the other one was studying pharmacy. And then I thought, okay, because I already love language, then I always read a lot of books, love to write stories. And then it's a bit like Anne said, I thought, okay, when I study Dutch, what will be my career opportunities? So I choose pharmacy because it had better job opportunities, but also I thought it was a bit more interesting in the end than the Dutch language, which also meant a lot of history lessons, and I wasn't quite fond of that. So it was really, I think, the technical thing from pharmacy why I decided to study it.
That's really good. I think there's like the interest that comes from your childhood and then the practicalities of it. And I think, Anne, you mentioned that it was also the political environment, the situation you found yourself in at that time that inspired you to go for pharmacy. It is seen very much as a stable, good job. And I want to explore that a little bit more because I often feel young professionals get stuck in one area and they don't always know they can move. Do you any other details to add, Anne? You gave us quite a good summary, but anything else that influenced you to do pharmacy?
Yeah, actually, before I decided to study pharmacy, I thought about studying chemistry, and because of the high unemployment rate at the time for chemists, I decided, well, I like to be in a pharmacy. Even as a kid, I loved the smell in a pharmacy. I mean, it sounds a bit strange, but I really enjoyed the smell of all the teas and so on. So I decided, well, I could combine my interest in chemistry with the love of a pharmacy. So I could study pharmacy.
I think that's very inspirational, Anne, really.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have that analytical thoughts as a kid as Linda had, but I really liked the smell. I don't know. It was great.
Yours was like an emotional attachment. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it probably was. And what I heard many years later was that my aunt told me that actually she would have loved to study pharmacy. She couldn't because of World War II. After the war, she had to find another profession, and there was no money for her to go to university. And so I felt pretty inspired that I could just do or fulfill the dream my aunt had. I didn't know it at the time when I started to study, but she told me later. So I'm really glad that I did it, and I never regretted this decision because it's such a broad field where you can go after graduating, and I tried so many different professional fields, and now I'm happy to be at the authority, and I think my job there is pretty fulfilling.
Lovely. I think that you've got the emotional ties there, haven't you, where you can see that the choice you made was influenced by practical things, but also you had that sense of belonging with a community pharmacy. And then to hear your aunt's story as well is really lovely. I'll share with you both. You both seem to be passionate about pharmacy from a very, very early age. And when I was at school, there were probably 3 or 4 different career paths they would put you into, whether it was medicine, law, or maybe teaching. And then some things would be nursing or being a doctor. These things would be the decisions. So I actually applied for medicine and I didn't get in. And I had to retake my A-levels. This is my story that I tell when I'm a mentor to many people. And then I got an interview at the School of Pharmacy and started 2 weeks later. And I did find my pharmacy degree quite tough, I must say. I found the chemistry. It's really very chemistry, isn't it? And I've got a bit of a personality that I love history and English and writing. And I hear you have as well, Linda. And I could have probably done English or history, but I chose pharmacy. And then my career has been absolutely amazing. There have been some difficult things along the way, which we can all discuss. But when I think back now to the choice I made at the time I took my A-levels again, I think that path would not have been open to me if I went into medicine. I don't know where I would have ended up, but I kind of feel first CEO of FIP, who's a woman. It's a good story to say that sometimes at your early stages, you may not have the whole story set out. So I think we can explore some of that. And I also think for our early career pharmacists as well, not always getting the results at the right time can make you very strong, because a little bit, I know that people can get very depressed and very upset if they don't get their exams, but sometimes you are even stronger when you have to redo things or retake them, or you have to make a different decision. So I'm going to ask you both that kind of question as well. Have you ever had a mistake that you've learned from? Or, when we come to the end of the interview, the podcast, I'm going to ask you about the advice you would give somebody who was starting their careers, because I think it's so important. I know that we're here today really to talk about our European Women Pharmacists Meeting and the group that you have pulled together. And I know from our conversations, we're very passionate about bringing women together to have some solid conversations. Can you tell us a little bit about the EWPM, as it's called, and your involvement in it? And I'm going to start again with Linda. Anything that you'd like to share with the listeners?
For a bit of history from the EWPM, it's maybe best to ask Anne, because she was involved several years before me. But I'm on the organizing committee for 5 years now. The first time I went was in Vienna. We have this Dutch organization for women pharmacists, the NOVA, and I was already involved in this organization. And every year, a couple of women from the NOVA visit the EWPM. So I decided I was never been in Vienna, and I love to go there. And this seemed like a good opportunity. And I just loved the thought that it would be only women. I don't know why that particularly attracted me, but there's not a vibe, I think, when a group of women are together. And I really got hooked up in Vienna because everybody I met there was so open and so friendly and so enthusiastic about their work and about meeting new people. And the same year, I got involved in the organizing committee of the EWPM, because our NOVA president, I took over from her because her term, is that the right word in English, had ended for the president of the NOVA. So that was my first experience with the EWPM. But I think it was already the 13th or 12th meeting that year. And maybe Anne can tell a little bit more about what went on before.
Yes, my first contact with the EWPM was as a member of the DPV, that was the German Women Pharmacists Association, and the DBV organized the first EWPM in 2004 in Frankfurt. I have been involved in the organization of the EWPM since 2009. Actually, when I was at the university, my professor asked me to join the DPV. And a couple of years later, they asked me to join the board of the DPV because they needed someone that worked at the authority. We wanted to have all fields of profession in the board, and as a board member, I started to be involved in the organization of the EWPM. In 2016, a multinational organizing team was founded, and I represented Germany at this organizing committee. And Linda, did you join us to organize the Vienna meeting, or did you join us afterwards? So you started organizing the Reykjavik meeting, right?
Yes.
That was your first organizational meeting. Okay. Yes, that's my story, how I got involved. I mean, I didn't invent or the EWPM. I just joined in later. So Elfriede and Virginia Watson would convince me to join the organizing committee, and then we started to organize the first meeting in Vienna.
Wonderful.
In 2017 as the multinational organizing team. And so at the time, sorry.
What I hear from this, Anne, is that when it was decided there would be like an organizing committee, a formality, then when Linda came in, maybe a year later, it felt very natural, very normal, very usual, as if it had been in place forever.
Yes.
And this is another thing that's a very good tactic for us to think. Sometimes it can feel like you are making more structures in the structure, but sometimes these are really important. And then when new people come in, they assume it's been there forever. And that's something about the heritage of the work that I think EWPM has done. Absolutely amazing. Could you both, knowing that time is marching on, could you both tell us one of your personal achievements or projects in the EWPM? And I don't mind who starts.
Yeah, I can tell something about it, because this year we had the meeting in the Netherlands, in Maastricht. And when I joined the organizing committee, it was for me, it was mostly, I don't know the word, but it was cozy and nice to meet people. And the organizing was not that much of a deal, because we gathered once a month with Zoom, and then we talked about the program and the speakers and so on. And then it was like a school trip when the meeting finally took place. But in September it was in the Netherlands, and it was quite a lot of work to do, but it was really an achievement, I think, because we had the corona in between, and then we couldn't be together. So this year we had 50 participants from 7 countries, and there were a lot of people who visit the meeting for years. But we also had a lot of young people, young pharmacists attending, and that was really great to see, because like what I had the first time in Vienna, feeling so welcome and getting motivated to be a part of this group of women. I saw that too with these young professionals, and everybody I spoke afterwards was really enthusiastic about the meeting and felt so welcome. And well, we had such nice discussion. The topic was reproductive health. And I really saw that what we do in the Netherlands or what we do in other countries, that you really inspire each other with this project. So that was one of my achievements in the EWPM.
Sounds like a massive achievement. And I have to say, Linda, isn't it just great to be able to be back together? I think everybody, we love our virtual communications because it has meant we can be accessible for those in low-income countries. We can talk as opposed to getting on planes, but there's nothing like getting together. And I think that is one thing that COVID has given us, the appreciation of our face-to-face meetings. So congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And what would you say would be your big achievement?
Well, the biggest achievement is what I didn't do on my own, was just to save the EWPM in forming the organizing committee, the international committee, and convince other ladies from different countries to join our group. I think that was very important. And now I think we are very successful. It's an established meeting. It takes place every year, and even at the Corona time, we had like a meeting every year. We had virtual meetings. Like in 2020, we did a meeting coping with the Corona crisis, and I was very proud that we could invite, for example, a lady from the Paul-Ehrlich Institute. This is they have a department that the department consults the WHO on vaccines, and she would present all the vaccine options for against Corona. And then we had a professor from a blood establishment, and he would like talk about reconvalescent plasma from people that had Corona before, and would donate plasma for especially sick people, and many other very interesting presentations on Corona. And we learned that we're not alone with our problems, that in all the other countries, professionals, healthcare professionals would face the same problems. And so we would just be together in our problems and could have an exchange and learn from each other. And another very interesting meeting was an online meeting a year later, where we would talk about ethical conflicts in pharmacy, and we had very interesting talks there too. Or in 2022, we talked about sustainability in pharmacy. So I think all of our meetings were very interesting. And you also mentioned gender medicine. We had like a gender medicine congress in 2008 in Heidelberg. And this was the first time when the British ladies would join the conferences. So I think we don't even have enough time to talk about all the achievements. So I would stop right there, that we can have some other questions discussed.
Thank you, Anne. I think what I'm hearing from both of you is that by providing people with a platform to come and exchange knowledge and ideas, face-to-face is amazing, but also the virtual experience during COVID meant sharing just went higher and higher and higher. And we found that at FIP. I think what would be really good, Isu, is if we add the link to the groups and to all of the different subcommittees as well of EWPM, and maybe even promote some of your programs, because if they were recorded, then that's another resource I think that's really important for other people. At FIP, we really did digital events from 2020. We put everything digitally, and we have not stopped. And the registrations and attendance at our digital programs are just amazing. So there's an appetite there. And it is, Linda and Anne, it's because you provide a platform for people to engage, and our profession loves it. Now I'm going to move us on to a little bit about the FIPWiSE toolkit to get some of your insights into this. I mentioned earlier on, it's for women in science and education. In this regard, we have got other forms of it for community pharmacy, and we will be rolling this out because it's a profession-wide issue. Now, I mentioned earlier the toolkit has 5 factors, but I'm particularly keen, listening to how busy you both are and the journey and the professional challenges and the fact that both of you do extra on top of your day jobs. What would be your reflection on work-life balance? Do you have similar challenges with each other? What are the challenges, or does it not worry you And I tell you why I'm going to say this. It's taken me until this stage in my career to understand that balance is about doing what's right in the moment. So some weeks it will be all about work, and some weeks it might be all about family, and some weeks you might need to do extra hours on one or the other. And the balance is about enabling that flexibility rather than a rigid approach to, I have to work at these times only and I have to do family at these times only. We need that flexibility. That's my reflection as I'm maturing in my professional career. But I'm interested to hear you both talk to us, to me and Isu, a little bit about your work-life balance challenges. And I'm going to start with Linda again.
Well, I think for me, it's easier than for other women because I don't have children myself and I have a very supportive husband. He even listens to when I'm going on about equality. And so, but what I see in my pharmacy where I work is that women have started working years ago, and a lot of them have a career. Some of them have leadership positions even. But what I notice is that the other tasks that women traditionally have, like taking care for children, caring for their family, that these tasks are not equally divided over both partners. So, for example, when a child is ill at home from one of my assistants, then the mother is the one who's staying at home because the father can't leave his job. He's too important. And I think that's a mindset, but it's also from my workers themselves, but also from their bosses, that it should be equally divided because the work of the women is as important as it is from the men. So that's one of the things where I see work balance is not always well for them. Of course, they have to have time to spend with their children, but I think also when you talk about equal wages for equal work, that's something you can get further with if these tasks are not equally divided. Because in the end, when you look back, it's the woman who works less hours or is not that committed to her work. So for me, that's an important thing. And I try to tell that to my colleagues and to tell them to stand up for themselves. And if they have an important meeting or an important task, then I hope to tell, I have to be at work. It has to be different this time. I hope that was clear.
They're very good insights. And, you know, often with my friends and my peers, older and younger, as I went through my career, it was always the woman who would be phoned from the school if the child was ill, not their man. And I'm talking about men and women marriages in this regard. But it would always be one, which is very intriguing, really. I don't think it's only the fact that your team kind of expect that, Linda. I think it's the whole culture. And we have moved so far. We really have moved so far. But we shouldn't forget that some of these things are still there as well. I think that's really important. Linda, I will say something. I think you cannot do well in your career, whichever partner you are in a partnership, without the support of the other one. I really believe this, truly. I think husband and wives and husbands, you will both do better if you support each other. It's just known. And I think talking about equality and equity and talking about problems and stresses at work can often be a real barrier for one partner or the other. But this really brings you closer together.
May I add some?
Go on.
Sorry, yeah, I want to add one thing because it's not that I think women should be working or should be having a career, but it should be a really free choice. If you want to stay home with your children, that's perfectly fine with me, but it has to be a choice that you make yourself.
Agree. Yeah. And also, Linda, we're noticing in the UK, where I'm mainly based, more and more people don't have a choice. They have to work because of the bills and the cost of living and all of this. So in a way, having to work is not a choice as much as having to stay at home. So it's the choice that's important. Perfect. Maybe this needs to go in our little update guidance. I see. We're planning to do, little top tips from podcasts. So I think this is really good take home. And what would be your challenges or the solutions maybe that you would have to work life?
Well, actually, I would be very happy if I would have had solutions, because I think all the professionally active women face the same problems. I got divorced, and actually, as a single mom, for me, it was easier to cope with all the problems because I didn't have to take care of a husband anymore. And my mom and my dad were much more understanding and supporting me, actually. And my new partner I met more than 10 years ago is much more helpful than my former husband, actually. And I think it's also a question of supporting each other. I mean, my new partner understands that I have a career, and he supports me as much as he can. My daughter supports me a lot. She's 20 now, so I don't have to take care of her anymore. Sometimes she takes care of me, and dinner is ready when I come home from work. So yeah, I think it's really a problem of the society that usually the men get still the better paid jobs, and therefore that's also what I hear from my colleagues. They have to stay home with the kids because the husband has the job that is better paid, and therefore they say, okay, it's easier if you stay at home. I can't, I have to keep this well-paid job, and that's why please take care of the kids when they are sick. And I think this is a real problem, but everyone is used to that. Nobody really questions that in the environment we work in. So that even if the job is maybe not paid that well, it might be important for the woman to stay in the job. And what I experienced that it's not always the men that are not supportive. It's mainly other women that are not supportive. I had in my personal career, I had more problems with women than with men. The men were like, well, we are very happy that you are so engaged and you come anyway, even if your kid is sick. But the other, my women colleagues asked me, why don't you stay home if your kid is sick? Your kid needs you. And I felt very bad. And the performance at the job is also bad if you have to think about your kids all the time. You know, I think it's really hard to find a good balance to be successful in the job and also be a good mother, because the environment tells you are not a good mother if you don't care all the time, if you don't cook meals, if you don't organize everything, if you bake like cookies for school and so on.
I think Anne and Linda, you've actually covered an amazing amount. And what we've got here is the choices you have, the support you need, and then we've got these other wider societal issues. So what I'm hearing is, if you have a good relationship with a husband or a wife or a partner, then this makes things easy in terms of support. If you don't, this makes things harder. So your story, Anne, is the same as Linda's, but the other way around, if that makes sense. Having a supportive partner does make life easier. Then you have I think we need another podcast, Isu, but I really feel this idea of having it all is some of the problem around work-life balance. Because Anne, you just mentioned, to be a good mum, you have to be at every single assembly, you have to be at every how would I say it? You have to bake every day, you have to be at sports days. You have to be the best mum you can be and be fully present. And then at work, you cannot leave early. You must do this, you must do that, you mustn't look after your children. So you have to be almost full-time worker. And then you have to be a full-time wife or partner. And then you have to do the housework. So it's like you don't have the best of everything, do you? You have almost like just everything to do. So that's my lesson for that one. we are coming to the end of our time. I do apologise because, no, I don't apologise. I just feel like we had a lot to talk about, and there's been a lot said. And I think it's really, really important for us to capture Linda and Anne's views on these things at ISU. So I think we will reflect on what else we could come back and talk about, because these issues are real life issues for European women, for women in the Netherlands and Germany and UK and Turkey, but also let's see if they're global as well. And I also think the work-life balance question opens everything else as well. Relationships, support, tools, being assertive, and then the wider challenges. So this is really good. I'm really honoured and humbled that you have both taken time out of your busy diaries to speak to me today and to work with ISU and myself on this first podcast. I think the women at whatever stage of the career will listen to this and think, yes, or, oh, that's good, that's interesting. And I think everybody should be a little bit more Linda and a little bit more Anne in the way they approach things. It's very insightful as well for our early career, younger women at the starts of their careers. And now, to sum up, can you give me one thing you would tell yourself at 20? If you could go back and tell her, what would you say to yourself at 20 that would really, really come from your experiences today? And that will help our early career pharmacists and scientists out there. Linda, what would that top tip be to 20-year-old Linda?
It's that's a hard question, a difficult question. I think it's good to realize that you can make bad choices, or maybe not bad choices, but it's okay if you try something and it's not the right thing for you, and then you try something else. It's okay. You don't have to be what you want to be at right now. Take some time to look for what you really love to do, and it's okay.
Lovely.
It takes several years to be what you want to be.
I think that will really, really help, especially after COVID. So many young people at the moment feel very pressured into their choices. This is lovely advice, Linda. We'll come back to this, I think, in another podcast. Anne, what would you tell 20-year-old Anne at the start of her career?
Well, I would tell myself that I don't have to be perfect, and that I do not have to have great achievements all the time. I'm allowed to make mistakes, and I will learn from these mistakes, and it will work out somehow. That's what I would tell myself.
Do you know what I will say, ISU, is we already have FIPWiSE on this podcast. We have two amazing, wise women who have just given us the benefit of their insights and advice. And I think those young early career pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists out there can really take. You don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to be in the right place all the time. You can take your time to make a decision. Again, thank you both so much. ISU, I think this is a start of something very lovely. We look forward to many more conversations with you both. Take care, and thank you.